Hello and a warm welcome to the ICMCI celebration of the International Consultants Day 2023. My name is Robert Bodenstein and I am chair of ICMCI. This is the day when we celebrate our profession and demonstrate the world the importance of this profession for economic growth and social welfare. ICMCI, as the leader in the profession, invites every year experts from around the globe to give comprehensive insights to management consulting. This year, we will start, like in previous years, with a presentation of the National Consulting Index, a research about the environment of management consulting in our member countries. It is presented by Alan Blackman and Simon Haslam. After that, we will have a short intro about impactful consulting, followed by a short discussion. But let us start with the National Consulting Index. Alan Blackman is member of the board at ICMCI and vice chair. Simon Haslam is chairing the academic fellows at ICMCI and actually developed the algorithm and the methodology to the National Consulting Index. He is a professor at Durham University Business School. We will have the presentation together. Now I will hand over to Alan or Simon? I don't know. Alan.
We go to Alan, yes.
Yep.
Alan and Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rob. Let's continue. Welcome from Australia, firstly, and from England in Simon's case, or Scotland. You're in Scotland, Simon. Welcome from Australia and to this 2023 update of the NCI. It's been a busy time for us getting this together. Globally, Source Global Research has estimated that the size of the management consulting market is 29 billion globally. This represents about 0.23% of global GDP. Some countries we know have stronger, more developed management consulting industries than others. And the NCI, or National Consulting Index project, aims to understand the factors that help account for this variation. The NCI project was started by ICMCI in 2018. The National Consulting Index itself determines the strength of the national management consulting sector relative to other countries. The project aims to refine and strengthen the computational model for estimating an NCI, update earlier work to estimate the size of the management consulting sector in each country for which data are available, and use the data to learn more about the trends and characteristics of the national consulting market. The goal is to produce the world's most authoritative summary of the size and features of the management consulting industry. Last year's report can be downloaded from this website, which is the cmcglobal.org website. So you can, and if you haven't seen it already, you can download that from there and view the document online. To start with, management consulting sector data for 14 countries was purchased from Source Global Research. This was, the countries were chosen for their size, geography and cultural diversity. And you can see quite the list of countries there. It's quite a spread and it covers the continents broadly. Firstly, the NCI, the method used here was to, firstly, the NCI team suggested various independent variables for the NCI to be used in the NCI calculation, and then the executive team from ICMCI they put together the data that we could use for that. The independent variables that were included in the analysis were Hofstede's individualism collectivism score, the Index of Economic Freedom, the VDEM Electoral Freedom Index, the National Gross Domestic Product, and the National GDP per head of population. Other variables such as business confidence, for example, were considered but rejected as they were not global in their coverage or were dated. Expert statistical analysis was then carried out to determine the best NCI equation capable of estimating the size of each country's management consulting industry. The NCI results will be shared with each Institute of Management Consultants, and further insight will be gathered to build a comprehensive picture of the global management consulting industry. The final report and research paper will then be published by ICMCI later in 2023. I'm a bit slow on the slides. This is the formula that came from the regression analysis that was undertaken. It's a linear regression analysis, and you'll see there the term ln that refers to the natural log of those particular numbers. And the natural log is used to actually iron out the effects of skewed data. So it helps to moderate the skewed data. Once that number is derived from that initial formula, you end up then with a logarithmic number, and that has to be converted then back to a number that makes sense to us in US millions of dollars. And so the formula for the MCS then is the exponential expansion of that logarithmic number that we derived here, adjusted for an error. That regression result ended up with an R squared of 0.927, which is quite strong. It indicates that 92.7% of the variability in the model was explained by this regression. And it's significant, less than 0.001, which means it's less than 1 chance in 1,000 of having achieved that result by chance. 3 variables, Hofstede's, VDEM, and the GDP, were significant unique contributors to variability, and collectively they accounted for 55.6% of the total variability in the model. Estimates then for a further 22 countries were computed based on the average fraction of national GDP of 0.2167. And that's the average of all of the countries that were computed in their GDPs. This compared quite favourably to Searle Global Research's estimate of 0.23%. The final number of management consulting sector size estimates is 68, or 82.9% of countries represented by the ICMCI. These next 2 slides show the list, and I'm obviously not going to go through all of those, but you can see the numbers there, and these will be made available to you to explore. But this shows the variables that were used in the regression and the 62 countries. Unfortunately, estimates could not be derived for 14 countries. And this is a list of those 14, and you can see there, most of these are small island nations, many in the Caribbean, but there are some standouts: Ukraine, of course, Lebanon, French Guiana, that are not island states. So they're extras, and outside of that, Cuba also is not really a small nation. I mean, it's got a population that's larger than Austria's and larger than most of the Central European states. So it's actually quite significant in terms of population, but we don't have the data for that. The next steps then are to contact the IMCs. So we'll contact each IMC with this data. We'll ask if the IMC agrees with the management consulting industry size estimate for their country. For example, they may have their own data sets, and David mentioned some that he'd seen recently. And also, what are the trends and forecasts for that the IMC has for the national management consulting market in their area? We'll collate this information and publish it as a comprehensive summary of the global management consulting industry and its current prospects. And that really sums up the presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy, and Simon, I'm sure, would be to address any questions you might have.
Thank you, Alan. Well, there are some questions in the chat box, actually, about why are some member countries missing, like India or Switzerland, but they appeared that in the last slide. Maybe you can give us a little bit insight about.
If you want me to go back to that, I don't know of any that are missing. All that were on the list that we have were used and analysed, except for those 14. That 14 could not be.
Alan, while you put the slide back on the screen, the key data that we would need for the 14 is the gross domestic product, the GDP for those 14 countries. If we had the GDP for any of those 14 countries, we could provide an estimate. If we had more comprehensive data, and that would include the Hofstede individualism, the GDP per population, and also the VDEM index.
And index of economic freedom as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, we could run the NCI equation. So what Alan showed in those slides with this slide here with a lot of countries on is there are 3 methods of calculating or estimating the size of a management consulting sector in any country. One is to use the reference data, which form the basis of the NCI equation, and we obtain that reference data from Source Global Research, as Alan explained. And there's 14 countries within the ICMCI community. We've got the source reference data as a robust reference point. Then for a lot of the countries, we were able to use the NCI equation, as Alan said, developed by consideration of the variables and running a regression analysis. And those extra 22 countries were able to do the estimate based on the GDP because some of one or more of the elements of the NCI equation weren't present. So there are 3 methods of estimating a management consulting sector. The most robust we would offer is the Source Global Research reference data, which we have to purchase. And then we use those 14 reference data points to make an estimate for a range of ICMCI countries. And you can see on that right-hand side, if you see a country estimate with the letters NCI after it, that shows we use the NCI equation to do it. And then if you see on that right-hand column, the letters GDP, that's where we use the GDP reference as the basis for the estimate. Sorry, I'll back to you.
No, that's fine. I'm not sure about India is there, so I'm not quite sure why that would be raised. Maybe it's a bit difficult to see this slide, and I appreciate that. So
but it hasn't been in the first slide because it's not calculated based on the.
Yeah, it is. It's
GDP,
based on the
but on the NCI algorithm.
It is based on the NCI calculation. India. Yeah, you can see if you look here on this particular slide. You'll see India about 6 or so from the bottom on that list, and next to it is NCI, which indicates that it was computed using the NCI formulation. These here were bought from Source Global Research, and these here were calculated using GDP. So those with NCI next to them were calculated using that formula that I showed you before, which was the result of the regression.
Okay. Rogero, he's asking why the NCI is presented in 2019. Interferences were made about the maturity of the management consulting industry in a specific country. Yes, Simon, please.
The biggest challenge with the NCI is we need quantified data that are globally reaching. And I think one of our frustrations as a research team, there are many considerations we would have about factors that might relate to the NCI, but the data are neither quantified nor are they globally available. And the comment about the maturity piece would be that we would see a general strengthening of a management consulting sector in a country over time, which comments on the maturity. And for that, you would see a country with a higher percentage of its GDP coming from management consultancy. For a country with a less well-developed and less mature management consulting sector, it would have a lower percentage of management consulting as part of its GDP. So that characteristic would still be there. But I think one of the things that we would acknowledge is in the course of the evolution of countries and society, the 4 years difference between 2019 and 2023 is not a long time for the economics of a country. So we would hope to see a strengthening of management consulting sectors within a country's GDP, but that would be a gradual shift rather than a very quick acceleration.
I think it's important to emphasize that the NCI is a number, but this number is calculated based on different indices. And one of the indices, what is the size of the market? And the size of the market is a very complex question, and that makes everything very complex to calculate. And this is why different methodologies of estimating the market size, which is not a market, it's actually something what we call a potential market size. So,
Robert, well said. And I think our goal with the NCI project is for us within the ICMCI to be able to produce the world's most authoritative insight into the global management consulting sector. And as Robert said, that is based on certain assumptions, certain other reference data with assumptions around it. So we are producing estimates. And as Alan said, our plan here is to say, we have run the numbers for 2023. What we then now plan to do is to share these numbers with each IMC and say, okay, this is the NCI estimate. What do you think? Because many IMCs will have their own local research and local insight. So we might then benefit from other data and other insights, and then also ask each IMC, what are the trends and the dynamics you see in your sector? What is happening locally that might change the structure or size of the management consulting sector in your market? There we get to Robert's sentiment of the idea of potential market. And if you remember Alan's slide, it was early on in the deck of the NCI report of the previous year that sits on the CMC Global website. Our plan is to then, at the end of our process this year, to produce the updated report, which will be even stronger in terms of its scope and its depth. And I think we're very well placed as an organization. There can be very few organizations which such a diverse and broad global reach.
Rob,
but
there
as
was
you say,
another...
Simon, it's so important to get in touch with the national institutes and to discuss it and have a common understanding how the figures are calculated and what is the impact on the profession in the countries, and approach politics, approach other stakeholders like client organizations, and discuss that with them and achieve a common understanding what would be needed changes in politics or wherever. Because what we do know, the wealthier the economy, the better the management consulting sector. This is what we want to say, and this is what we want to emphasize. Management consulting profession contributes to economic welfare and social welfare.
Rob, there were two other questions I noticed there. One from Regira quickly. Switzerland is on the list too, isn't it? Calculated by the NCI Regira. So that one's is there. It's just a little difficult to find on the second slide of those two tables. The other one was a question about how does this compare with IBIS World data. Simon, I'm sure will have a comment on this, but I can give you an example from Australia, for example. IBIS World estimated that the size of the management consulting market in Australia was $49 billion, which is roughly the size of the Australian defence budget. And seems to be in 2.5% of GDP, which seems highly improbable. Generally, in the numbers that I've seen from IBIS World, they are quite a bit bigger than these estimates, so much larger. There could be a number of reasons for this. One's a methodological reason. I've had a bit of a look at the methodology, and I won't go into the technology of that. But the other is that there's one of definition, and it's very hard to pin down the definitions. And I think one of the things that is really important in this area is that there be a common definition agreed to around the world about what a management consultant is and is not. And before we can determine the size of the industry, we really need to have that definition tight. And I think that's where a big difference is. And I think Simon has made that point to me a couple of times, but there's also the methodological issues associated with that. Simon.
Alan, you make a very good point there. And I think in terms of Peter, it's a good question. I think our caution here is just because the report is offered with a shiny cover and a flash website and a clear number doesn't mean to say we should necessarily believe it without being very curious. And Alan, I won't put you on the spot here, but I don't think you were over impressed when you looked at the methodology of one alternative estimation of management consulting market size, both on the way the estimation had been carried out and how old some of the data was. So you don't need to answer that. So I think for all of us, we look at these numbers, we might be interested, but hopefully we are curious. And that
I won't answer that, but I'd also make the point in IBIS World's support that not everything in their reports is necessarily questionable. I think it's there are a number of things about trends in the industry that are probably quite valid, and I've looked at some of that recent data from their March report for Australia, for example. I haven't gone beyond that, but certainly there are some comments in there that are quite sound. But I do question their estimates for market size.
And Sunil, just looking at your comment in the chat box, this is exactly the type of insight that we within ICMCI would like to benefit from. So when we share the data with each IMC will have local knowledge in terms of the structure and the characteristics and the trends in their sector. And that qualitative sentimental insight is as useful, if not more useful, than the number itself. So when we go to the next stage of sharing the data with each IMC, we'll be seeking each IMC's views on how the market is structured, what the trends are. Then when we pull this together, we, as ICMCI, develop an incredibly authoritative view of the structure of the global management consulting sector.
Okay. And one last question from Peter Westlund. In Australia, there are a wide range of consulting services provided to government. For example, that is contracting rather than management consulting.
Yeah.
Which it's a good indicator for one of the biggest challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that well, that case, obviously you've received some information on this case involving PwC in Australia, and it's continuing to receive a lot of press coverage here. In fact, it's on daily pretty much, and having a big effect on PwC, but also on government's view of consulting. So we wait to see what the inquiry here brings, but I'm sure that will flow to other nations in due course.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a look. I need to have a look on the time. We are sharp at 10:30, so we are going to switch. If there's no urgent question, we are going to switch to the next item on the agenda. Before I do that, I just want to recall, please get in touch with the National Consulting Index team, discuss the outcome of the research for your specific country, and we will come back to you and present the 2023 edition, which covers the last year, in the next weeks, to have concrete numbers and concrete result for all our member countries. Now we will switch over to the next item on the agenda. It is about impact consulting. We have, again, two colleagues who will present about impact consulting. First is Dr. Dawn Rennick. She is a highly respected researcher, certified management consultant, and the founder and CEO of Piercing Sun Consulting. She specialized in the dynamic field of service science, where it intersects with impact consulting. In an extensive 30-year career, Dr. Rennick has dedicated herself to understanding how people, organizations, and technology interact to improve service systems. Her expertise spans diverse industries, including financial services, healthcare, and technology. In uniquely combining service science with impact consulting and accelerating business as a force for good, Dr. Rennick has emerged a leader in the field. As more industries shift to carbon neutral service models, Dr. Rennick's knowledge is invaluable in assisting her clients as they adjust to these changes. Small and mid-sized companies play a crucial role in addressing global climate change. She provides a comprehensive approach with innovative methods to help her clients better understanding, designing, and manage their environmental, social, and governance impact. David Norman holds two certifications. The first designation is the Certified Management Consultant from the Institute of Management Consultants in the US, and the Certified Business Manager from the Association of Professional and Business Management. Overall, Norman has nearly 50 years experience consulting on concurrent with 11 years experience as executive coaching with the owners executives of a wide variety of mostly closely held clients, not-for-profits, and governmental entities, as he founded his own consulting firm in 1995 to offer results-oriented services to small and mid-sized companies, now-profit organizations, and governmental agencies. He has served as chair of 3 nonprofit and as interim executive director as 3 not-for-profits undergoing change. Norman has been recognized for this consulting, first internally in 2017 with the CMC Academic Fellow, and in 2018 as a fellow of IMC USA. Very interesting short bios. Let me hand over to, is it Dawn or David? Who wants? David, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll take it, Robert. Thank you for the introduction. Dr. Rennick and I are pleased and glad to have this opportunity to discuss impact for consulting, especially on this, the International Consultants Day. Thank you very much. So to set the stage a little bit, I'm saying this morning, today, the consulting industry.
David, sorry, but it seems you're cut off from time to time.
Oh, Jesus. I'm going to try my best.
Okay, so maybe a little bit slow.
Okay. All right. The consulting industry, just give me a thumbs up. Better. No, don't.
Maybe you switch off your camera.
Yeah. Second. Let's try this. Okay, thank you. Sorry. It's probably a good thing that you don't get to see me. It's only 4:30 in the morning in the US. The consulting industry itself, as Alan has just addressed, and Simon, thank you, is a broad, inclusive term that refers to all the companies and individuals that offer consulting services. And we know this is big business. Doing the translation from what Alan and Simon just presented, it's something like 29 billion US dollars worldwide, and a quarter of 1% of GDP. It's big business. That's the industry, and we hear about the industry in the media all the time. The consulting profession, on the other hand, refers to the skills and expertise of those of us, the individuals that we bring to our clients. There are then the jobs in the industry, and then there are professionals. To better understand who is a professional, let's start with a minute, and I've got to go to ICMCI's definition of consulting. 3 parts. A consultant shall be defined as one who helps organizations solve issues, create value. 2, somebody who, through their application of knowledge, skills, and assets, to provide objective advice. The definition is inclusive, and that includes individuals, consultants in a practice, or even internal consultants to an organization. The key difference between the industry and the profession, I believe, is focus on delivering value to clients. While an industry, the numbers that Alan and Simon have just shared are driven by profit and revenue growth, the profession that we live in is delivering results through people while behaving in an ethical, professional, competent manner. The second key difference is the level of expertise required to be a professional. Anyone can hang a shingle. Anyone can start a consulting firm. But a colleague of mine on this call today, we have 6 characteristics of those people that are considered professional. 1, they understand that consulting is a profession, that it's not a paycheck between jobs. 2, they are a member of their respective country's institute. They have signed on to an enforceable code of ethics and code of professional conduct to which they are held accountable. 4, they can choose to become certified management consultants, the gold standard for professional ethical consulting. 5, they continuously improve through professional development. And 6, and this is new, they have training in ISO 2700, an international standard that defines good practices in consulting. So it is then with the focus on these 6 characteristics and the accompanying competence framework, which my colleague, Dr. Rennick, will reference as she provides a foundation for a newer and interesting place to be, impact consulting. And if I might at that time pass it over to Dr. Rennick. Dawn?
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. And hi, everybody. Welcome to International Consultants Day. First, I'll set the stage for impact consulting with some background. Next, I'll talk about the need and the market. Then I'll move into consultant competency, key aspects of doing impact consulting. And lastly, I'll address the type of projects we find in this niche. So let me get started. There have been 2 important events that occurred that began the phenomenon we're now calling impact consulting. These events defined sustainability and signaled a global commitment to it. In 1969, the United States committed to sustainability, declaring it a national policy in the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969. Then in 1987, the United Nations Brundtland Commission defined sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The need for impact consulting comes from a need to account for the intangibles that are defined in environment, social, and governance, or ESG. In recent years, it's become imperative to consider non-financial intangibles that present material risk to a company and include those factors in its valuation and rating. The Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB, defines material issues as those that are reasonably likely to impact the financial condition or operating performance of a company and therefore are most important to an investor. Over the last 10 years, various meta-studies have validated that ESG performance is correlated with financial performance. In 2021, the UN Principles for Responsible Investment committed in incorporating ESG into credit ratings in a systematic and transparent way. It was signed by more than 180 investors and 25 credit rating agencies. ESG considerations encompass a wide range of subtopics, all of which help businesses fine-tune their levels of responsibility. Under E in the ESG definition are included climate change, biodiversity, air and water pollution, and water carbon waste management. The S in ESG branches out into human rights, labor standards, gender and diversity, customer satisfaction, and supply chain risk, among others. Governance, or the G in ESG topics, such as board composition, executive compensation, audit committee structure, policy creation, and whistleblower schemes. In 2005, ESG was coined in a landmark study entitled "Who Cares Wins." This study made the case to embed ESG factors in capital markets. The growth of ESG investing has accelerated due to 4 factors, which is providing huge opportunities for impact consultants. First, ESG springboarded off of the socially responsible investment movement. Secondly, over the last 10 years, ESG reporting has become much more robust. Thirdly, there is an estimated $20 trillion in ESG assets under management. And fourth, ESG is now seen as part of fiduciary duty. In the last few years, the world has experienced a number of negative impacts, such as significant natural disasters, growing disparities in healthcare and income, and heightened public interest in corporations, and of course, the pandemic. These events have all fueled the movement and the acceleration. Here you can see the emerging trends and future outlook for ESG and sustainability, what we're calling impact consulting. The total growth between 2021 and 2027 is projected to increase by 17% annually. Specifically, the demand for impact consulting is expected to grow over the next 4 years from 9.5 billion to 16 billion. Growth is driven by increased awareness of social and environmental issues, and technology, digitalization, and data analytics are playing a crucial role in shaping the future of impact consulting. Another key milestone underpinning the rise of impact consulting is the UN's ESG framework adopted by UN member states in 2015 as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which established a 15-year plan to achieve the UN's 17 goals that you see here. Today, progress is being made in many areas in this chart, but overall, goals aren't where they need to be to meet that 2030 target. Our opportunity is that this is driving a sense of urgency across the world and an increased level of intense focus on redefining the way we do business to get us there. As CMCs, pay particular attention to the goals that you see here that I've marked with yellow smiley faces. We are held accountable by ICMCI and IMC Global for helping hit these targets. To do our part, ICMCI and IMC Global have updated the competency framework we consultants must adhere to. I want to call your attention to this section under Ethics and Professional Conduct, 4.1 Society, G1 Sustainability and Corporate and Social Responsibility. You'll see the competency framework has embedded within it 8 out of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, and G.1 all the way from a foundation level as knowledge of it to the CMC level, where the goals are, quote, considers the application of the UN Sustainable Development Goals in all assignments. So this has not been a simple exercise. It is part of our credentials. Notice under G1.2, we are called upon to demonstrate corporate and social responsibility in one's own and client organizations as well. So what exactly is impact consulting? It has a distinct underpinning belief that business and capital have the power to be forces for good. As impact consultants, we are combining business acumen and social and environmental expertise. The value we deliver our clients include helping them reduce their business risk while guiding them through the steps of creating positive social and environmental change. There are 3 key principles of impact consulting. Aligning values. We work with clients to help them develop goals that align with creating positive impact. Systems thinking. It's crucial that we possess an understanding of the interconnectedness of social, environmental, and economic factors. Clients look to us to identify the leverage points for creating change. And stakeholder management. It's imperative that we help our clients engage with diverse stakeholders throughout the solutions design process to gather insights, build relationships, and co-create sustainable solutions. Recognizing that we have an international audience on the call today, there are international cultural considerations, such as in Europe, the emphasis is on sustainability, social responsibility, and corporate governance, while in Asia, we must balance economic growth with social and environmental priorities, cultural nuances, and diverse regulatory environments. We also develop robust impact measurement frameworks to track progress and communicate results effectively. The metrics we use must include social, environmental, and economic factors that are in alignment with internationally recognized standards. We collaborate extensively with nonprofits, government agencies, local communities, and other stakeholders. We foster partnerships that leverage collective expertise and resources for greater impact. We need to encourage innovation and facilitate transformative change with organizations, and this involves identifying opportunities, developing strategies, and implementing sustainable solutions with our clients. Fortunately, we have a strong code of ethics as CMCs, and we must uphold these standards and ensure transparency throughout our consulting engagements. We all know adhering to ethical guidelines, aside from being the right thing to do, helps us build trust with our clients. We prioritize building local capacity by transferring knowledge, skills, and expertise to empower local stakeholders. This approach ensures sustainability and long-term impact beyond our engagement. Impact consulting differentiates us in 5 ways. It aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We drive major initiatives across a broad range of global challenges and shape a better future. We help clients transform their core business to create positive economic and environmental and societal impact in ways that are purpose-driven and profitable in the long term. We embed ESG values, principles, and practices into our own consulting companies. As a professional consultant, this differentiates you and your practice. Let's talk now about impact consulting projects. I've placed some examples of well-known international B Corps here. These are just a few. You can see Danone, Impact Hub, Caspian, Hope, and Natura, all B Corps. These companies have become role models for sustainable business practices. B Corp is short for Benefit Corporation and is a type of legal structure for a business that balances profit and purpose. This legal framework provides accountability, and it safeguards the company's mission against future changes in ownership or leadership. A B Corp certification is well suited for you as a small consulting firm or your small or mid-sized clients who want to measure, report, and improve their impact and differentiate themselves from the competition. Key features of B Corp certification include the use of a globally recognized framework, the use of a scientifically grounded impact assessment, legal accountability and transparency, the ability to continuously improve, and finally, access to a global B Corp community. In summary, impact consulting enables you to transform your practice. You, in turn, are able to transform your clients, and they, in turn, are able to transform the world. That's impact consulting.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Thank you very much, David. I do have some questions in the chat box. One is organizational. It's about how to get the slides. We will send you with the, after this event, we will send you a link where to download. And you can download both presentations from that link. Are there any other questions to David or Dawn? We do have some minutes to discuss. And as I see, okay, because I'm gonna put the social media links. Please follow us on these links, and you will get this the presentations on the links. Simon, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, not a question, just a comment to David and Dawn. Thank you. I think more work is needed to bring consulting closer to the sustainability agenda. And it's great to see this demonstrated in practice, and just to appreciate the work of both of you. Thank you.
Simon, thank you also. There's, as we all know in the world, ethics is playing a very important part, and being part of ICMCI, or in our case, IMC USA, and in particular having the CMC with the enforceable code of ethics, I believe is the one thing, Simon, in particular, that sets us apart as a profession than the, at least in the US, the million other people who are calling themselves consultants. It is extremely important that we stand for something good and something right, and that is not only in how we practice, but in what we practice. So it's our honor to be here today to share some thoughts. This is a burgeoning market. B Corps are available around the world my understanding from Dr. Rennick. So those of you in other countries other than the US, look into it in your own area as to how perhaps you as a professional consultant can help organizations do what's right and help the world. So it's a good thing. Simon, thank you for asking.
Thank you, David. And that brings me to the question from Peter Westland from Australia. And he's asking, who offers the B Corp certification?
Don?
Are you on mute? Still?
The big, Don, you're on mute, but the B Corp is offered not worldwide, but it is country specific. There are some regional, and Don's the expert, I'm not, but for some reason we can't hear her. In the US, it's B Lab, L-A-B, and there are similar entities worldwide. I know there's a large one down in the South American area, and then in the EU, I think it's also called the B Lab in the EU, and in Asia also. Well, there's some available out. It is a worldwide, it's a local designation. It is available worldwide. Did that help, Peter?
Robert, I'd be really interested to hear from Dr. Rennick a bit more about the SDG. You mentioned that we're not doing as well as we had hoped, and 2030 is just around the corner. So as a consulting profession, what are some of the key issues we might be thinking about in terms of, you know, where the world is at meeting those goals?
Welcome to technology. If we can, I can only speak from my experience, Dwight. If we can continue to move, Dawn is asking, has the moderator muted her?
No, she's not muted now.
Okay.
Maybe Dawn, you might check which microphone you are attached to. Maybe you have 2 or 3 different microphones, and one of them might be muted as a phone and not from the Zoom. But meanwhile, if David can try to answer as far as possible, and then we need to have a look at the time.
Yeah. Dwight, as individual consultants, people in smaller boutique firms in particular, we need to push the whole ESG thing stronger. I know I can only speak in the US where I am right now, and I would love to say there's a national consensus behind doing ESG, but well, politics being what politics are, and I got to stay out of that. It's not a pretty sight in here being in the US. I'm certainly not necessarily proud of being a standard bearer for ESG, but the opportunities do exist. The organizations that we help that want to stand for the right things will explore it. Okay, and it's just going to have to be a continued push, I guess, is the best way, Dwight. Okay.
Thank you, David. Before we close our session, I will use the chance to announce that we are adapting our ISO 20700 checklists to demonstrate the ability to deal with SDGs. So that will be made much more clearer than it is now in the training. And the PSC is working on that. It's much work to do, but it shall demonstrate, starting in the ISO training, that management consultants are able to deal with SDGs, and it does comply with the ISO standard. This is an announcement. Hopefully we are ready for that by October in our annual meeting. And that brings me to the closing sentence. I hope to see you all. And we have for this session 160 registrations. I hope to see you all in Amman in October. Then we can discuss in person, and we can share our experience in person, which is always far better than having microphones that are cut off or connection lines that are not connecting. The only thing that connects us is a glass of beer at the bar or something else, whatever we prefer. And please register for the annual conference. It's a great program. It will deal with artificial intelligence as the main topic, but also, of course, with what we had in our last presentation about impactful in terms of sustainability. Before I let you go, I want to raise your hand and wave to the camera, and Josaima will make some photos for our presentations and our social media presence. Please wave and keep your hand on, because Josaima might need to switch the screen. We have so many people attending and we don't know who is on which screen on her side. Okay. Done, Josaima. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. And thanks for joining us. Have a great whatever. In Europe, it's a great day. In Australia, it's a good night. And in Americas, well, it's a good day. Okay, rest of the night. Thank you for joining us at this time. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Consulting stay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.